Hey guys, Captain Mike, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. I'm excited because we're drinking bourbon tonight. And yes, I know this is my second Amburana finished video in a row. I just finished the barrel bourbon Amburana finished, and tonight it's the Penelope Rio. Guys have been going crazy on Facebook and online about this bottle, so I decided to pick one up when I had the chance. Honestly, other than looking at the bottle, confirming it's a Rio, I didn't even know what this was until I got it home. This is a honey and Amburana double finished bourbon. Now, what even is Amburana? It's a South American oak traditionally used to age a fermented sugarcane spirit. The Amburana finish can be very aggressive, and if you're not careful, it can really overrun the bourbon. And the typical notes from an Amburana finish are heavy on the cinnamon with some light tobacco and leather. The honey finished on this whiskey, it was done by taking empty honey barrels and filling them, then emptying them, and then repeating that 5 times. So of course the finishing was done in full casks. It's not like they just staved the whiskey. Penelope did not distill. Instead, they bought their bottles from MGP until MGP bought Penelope in 2023 for $105 million. Okay, let's get to the specs and stats and then get it. Penelope Rio Batch 1. This is a 4-grain mash bill. It's a blend of 3 different bourbon mash bills to get a derived mash bill of 75% corn, 7% rye, 15% wheat, and 3% malted barley. The website says that it's 4 to 6 years old, and the finishing period, it also says, was approximately 2 years. It's bottled at 98 proof, non-chill filtered. I paid $89 for this at Total Wine. It's not a readily available whiskey. I've never seen it sitting on the shelf. I just happened to see it on Total Wine's website, and so you have to go to Total Wine and ask an associate, and if they have it. And it was pretty funny because she actually called back and said, hey, this guy wants a Penelope Rio. Can he have one? I was like, is there like a list, or what would make it so that they wouldn't actually give me one? I don't know. But anyway, I did get one. Again, Total Wine, $89. Obviously, I have had a couple pours of this whiskey already, so let's get it. And I can already have those aromas that are so strong just coming from here. Oh, rich and cloying. On the east coast of Florida, there's a little city, a little town in the Space Coast, we call it, Merritt Island. And inside Merritt Island, there's a pancake house. It's called Merritt Island Pancake House. I've been there a number of times, and they have this breakfast. It's called bread pudding. And it's not just a little piece of bread pudding. It's like 3 big pancakes stacked on top of each other, made with I don't know what, and topped with a bunch of stuff. And that's exactly what this smells like to me. Every time I have this, I think, man, it just reminds me of being at the pancake house and having that bread pudding. It's that cinnamon Foster sauce. It's the rum, the raisins, the caramel drizzle, all that sweetness, and it's just right. It's just, it's a very interesting nose, very rich again, and cloying. We have honey for days, and it's not like you smell just a little bit of honey. It's like you shoved honey up your nostrils. Like it is just all pervasive. Oh man, it's really nice. It's very familiar to me, and I appreciate it. There's a thread of bourbon in there. Just a slight amount of hint of that in there, but really it's just that overpowering raisins, rum, honey, cinnamon. It's very good. I can see how someone would refer to this nose as heavy-handed, because it's definitely not subtle. I mean, it's very interesting and different. It's so different than the barrel bourbon the Barrel Craft Spirits Amburana finished. I thought this was honey and I thought this was the sweetness, but this here is next level. This is like just a little subtle hint compared to the Penelope Rio. Anyway, guys, cheers. Wow. It is so thick and syrupy. It's almost like just, you know how the consistency of honey when you just heat it up, it's pouring and it's really thick, and that's what it's like to me. It's kind of syrupy. It's just honey on top of sweetness, and then some more honey. Did I mention that there's honey on the palate? Big time here. We have some spice going on as well. So I have some honey. Did I mention that? And there is some spice also kind of kicking in there towards the end. On the beginning, it is just all honey. So just a little bit more honey there. I like really, there's that little thread that we recognize as bourbon in there, but it is very heavy on the sweetness. And now that spice is just kind of kicking in there in the end. I put this like in the fun category. Like it's a fun pour. It's thick, it's syrupy, it's rich. 98 proof is a really nice proof, and that's giving it some of that texture and that complexity, and I like that. It is helping out quite a bit. I could have a little more proof probably, but I'm glad it's not weaker on the proof, and I think that would just totally collapse this in all respects if it was any less than 98 proof, for sure. I think it needs that. It's not hurt at all by being 98 proof, and I think it could use a little more, but it doesn't need it. It's just really nice kind of where it is, but any less it would be just thin, I think, and weak. So again, I can explain, if you have not had a pour of Penelope Rio, then the nose I think is more complex than the palate. We have some other notes on there that I'm not picking up on the palate because the honey is almost overriding anything, at least on that initial kind of palate hit. And each time I go in for a sip, I get a big nose fill as well, and it's just all those scents from that cinnamon Foster sauce, that rum, the raisin. It's on the nose. Even each time I'm like just taking a sip, but I'm not getting that on the palate. But I think it's actually finishing better as it's just kind of lingering. It's a nice lingering finish. It has just a bit of heat. We have that honey sweetness, and we have a nice burst of cinnamon rounding out that sweetness. It's lingering with that just a sweet and spicy finish. I think perhaps the finish of this whiskey is the best part of it. The palate to me was pretty simple, just sweet, and then just a streak of that bourbonness and some spice. And the finish is nice. It's just kind of lingering and warming. The spice, a bit of tingling with some totally overlying sweetness throughout. So I think that the finish is the best part of the Penelope Rio. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the Penelope Rio? Honestly, I think this is a great pour. I think it's a great pour to have maybe once a month or once a quarter. I can see how if you have this if you hit it like every night for a week or 2 weeks, it's too much. Sometimes I'm eating a food and I hit like a saturation point, and I know that if I just have one more bite, I'm just going to lose it and not be able to enjoy that at all. And I feel like this is the way this is. It's not as subtle. It's almost heavy-handed, the finish, I think. The barrel spirits, the barrel craft bourbon here, I feel like it's more subtle. I liken it more to the High West finishes, the Cabernet and the Chardonnay and stuff, where that finish is kind of like subtle and just kind of gives a nice roundness and to the whiskey, as opposed to here I am. You know, the Whistlepig Liche finish, that's more like this one. Like that Whistlepig Liche, the Liche is kind of almost overpowering the rye, and I do like it. But you can't drink a whole lot of that, at least I don't think so. It's just too sweet, and you're gonna hit a saturation point before too long. I totally get why guys on the internet and on Facebook, whatever, why some guys love this pour and why some guys hate it. Regardless, I'm happy to have a pour of this every now and again, and I'm happy to have it on my shelf, and just not gonna hit it that very often because I don't want to get just saturated and sick of it. And that's it for the Penelope Rio. I think if you can get one for 89 bucks, again, not easy to find. If you like these types of finished whiskeys, cool. I think this is an interesting one and a nice one to add to your collection. The Amburana finish is kind of the hip thing right now. I'm gonna try and find that RD1 Amburana, and then, you know, I'll have these 3 Amburana. I think that's a pretty good Amburana collection. I feel like I prefer the barrel craft spirits over the Penelope at this time. All right, my guys, how about you? Have you had the Amburana finish? What are your thoughts on it? Don't know. The RD1, have you had that one? I'm certainly gonna pick that one up next and give it a go. If you enjoyed the video, like it, it's free. Subscribe to see more of my content. Again, I do both whiskey and book reviews. But for now, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn the pages, my friends, and stay thirsty. Cheers.